So you may have noticed that this year I read a lot of fantasy, which usually means a lot of series, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I love it. I like to read books like this. I like to read what I want to read, and I'm usually pretty good about keeping up with them. I don't mind having a bunch of series that I'm juggling. I try to read things close enough together. I reread if I need to, so I'm gonna keep that up. As a relatively new booktuber, I'm really excited for some of that end of the year content. So today I pulled a bunch of books off of my shelves, and I'm gonna show you my 2026 yearly TBR. Now, instead of doing the 26 books of 2026, I had to do it my own way, and so I'm going to do it countdown style, which actually resulted in more than 26 books, but at least this is something that I can keep up with every year. So I've got some cozy books, I've got some standalones, I've got some gothic horror twisty books, and yes, I have some more series. It's kind of inevitable when you read a lot of fantasy. So stick around and take a look at the books that I want to read in 2026, and then probably at the end of the year, we'll look back and we'll see how I did. So you may remember that we promised you a winter TBR game filled with female authors, and we totally filmed that adorable video, but it had no audio, and obviously we can't redo it because it was a game. So at the end of this video, I'm gonna try to use the footage that we have and put in some cute music and some voiceover and magically reveal the books that we got from that winter TBR. In the meantime, grab your favorite beverage. Hopefully it's a warm one. It's snowing outside here. And join me to talk about the books that I wanna read in 2026. We're starting strong with books that do not require anything of me after I'm done with the last page. So these are my 7 standalones that I want to read in 2026. In no particular order, Catabasis, or Catabasis, by R.F. Kuang. Dante's Inferno meets Piranesi in this dark academic novel where 2 graduate students must travel to hell in order to save their professor and graduate. So I just finished Babel last month and absolutely adored it. However, I know that this book is receiving some mixed reviews, I shall say. I'm really curious to see if I like this as much as I enjoyed Babel. Next on my must-read in 2026 is Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. A mother struggling to repress her violent past, a son struggling to grasp his violent future, and a father blind to the danger that threatens them all. I loved Blood over Brighthaven. M.L. Wong's writing completely gripped me, made me feel emotions that I've never felt just within the first couple pages of that book. And so when I found out she had another standalone, I had to get my hands on it, and it was actually quite difficult to get my hands on it. I tried to find some fancy copies to purchase, but I thought I would try it and read it first before I invested in some of the more expensive copies. I'm learning and growing as a human. But regardless, I'm really excited to get to this in 2026. A more recent addition to my collection is Kill the Beast by Sarah Swift. Comp titles are The Witcher meets Howl's Moving Castle. So it's a debut original fairy tale of revenge, redemption, and friendship. And what really got me, what really made me want to pick it up is it says it's for fans of T. Kingfisher, Naomi Novik, and it's a cozy fantasy with a dash of gritty adventure. So T. Kingfisher and Naomi Novik are 2 authors that I've definitely enjoyed a lot of their works from, and this was an aardvark pick, and I had to pick one from my box, and I had started to hear some things about this, and it sounded interesting enough. I have since heard a couple people read this, and they ate it up. They read it in one sitting, and so I'm really glad I took advantage of this one. The next up on my list is Julie Chan is Dead by Leanne Zhang. I was really intrigued by this from the moment I heard about it. Then I saw it on Book Outlet for a really good price, and so I had to snag it. This is a razor-sharp, diabolical debut thriller where a young woman steps into her deceased twin influencer's life only to discover dark secrets hidden behind her social media facade. So like I said, I was super intrigued from the moment this came out, and I was able to catch a really good deal recently. Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. When a domesticated robot gets a nasty little idea downloaded into their core programming, they murder their owner. The robot then discovers they can do something else they've never done before, which is run away. So this would be my first Tchaikovsky, and I thought it seemed like a more low-stakes entry into his writing. Editing Genevieve here. So I'm a cotton-headed ninny muggins who neglected to include one of my 7 books because I have it as an ebook and so I didn't have it in front of me. The 6th book on this list is Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. Spaceships aren't programmed to seek revenge, but for Dracula, Demeter will make an exception. This is another book that intrigued me from the moment I heard the plot, and so I bought an ebook version of it. This is also a book that I used as a trick plot in the video that my mom and I did for 2 treats and a trick because I thought the plot just sounded so bizarre. Go check that video out to see if I tricked her or not. And then book 7 on my standalone, I don't actually have yet. I thought I would have it by now, but it's The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. This is a genre-defying quest about a lady knight whose legend built a nation and the cowardly historian sent back through time to make sure she plays her part, even if it breaks his heart. I knew about this book and I knew it was coming. I've never read any Alex E. Harrow before, but then I read The 6 Deaths of the Saint, which was a short story novel in the Into Shadow series, and it was the first short story in that series that really showed me that a short story can actually be good. That one just gripped me and I loved it. And then I was so excited because I knew that it was very similar to The Everlasting. I felt like it was kind of like an intro to what I was going to get. I thought I would have it by now, but there's been some shipping delays, so hopefully I'll get it soon. These are my 7 standalones. No sequels, no commitments, no regrets. This next list is where I'm keeping myself honest. These are my 6 one-book experiments. So think of it as the try it before you buy it shelf. So these are the 6 books where I'm not committing to the whole series yet, although I really do think I'm gonna like them and end up buying them. The Will of the Many, which is the first book in the Hierarchy series by James Islington. At an elite academy, a young fugitive uncovers layered mysteries and world-changing secrets in this fantasy series that has a Roman feel to it. Book 2 just came out last month and there's been a lot of hype about it, but I held strong and still only have book 1 in my hands. The Jasmine Throne. This is the first book in the Burning Kingdom series, set in a world inspired by the history and epic stories of India, in which a captive princess and a maidservant in possession of forbidden magic become unlikely allies on a dark journey to save the empire. So it is a completed set. The 3rd book came out in 2024, but I have successfully only bought book 1. This is the first book in the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey, which is actually 2 authors. Humanity has colonized the solar system, Mars, the moon, and the asteroid belt and beyond, but the stars are still out of our reach. This series follows Jim Holden, who makes runs from the rings of Saturn to the mining stations of the belt. When he and his crew stumble upon a derelict ship, they find themselves in possession of a secret they never wanted. War is brewing in the system unless he can find out who left the ship and why. This is actually a 9-book completed series. I do actually have the first 3 books, but there's a good reason. So I found this one at Half Price Books and it was in really good condition, and so I picked it up and I was gonna stop there, but the next time I went to Half Price Books they had the other 2 and they were also in really good condition. So technically I do own the first 3 of these, but considering it's a 9-book series and I got them at Half Price Books when they, you have to grab them when you can find them, I still feel like it acceptably belongs in this category and you can come at me if needed in the comments. The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. It's just part of the Devil series. Here, Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city where he is certain a commendation and a grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made of an unrepentant murderer, practitioner of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. So the mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve the righteous ends. So I haven't read any Joe Abercrombie yet, and I know that other people who have read, I believe it's his First Law series, were kind of hit or miss about this. I think because they were used to his previous writing style. So I'm kind of glad that this is the first one that I'm actually picking up. So we'll see if I like it. If I don't, I can always try the First Law trilogy, which is another one of his that people always kind of recommend. Red City by Marie Lu. So this is a new edition of mine from my October Owl Crate box. This is the first book in the New Alchemist series. The Godfather meets the Magician in this sweeping adult debut. So Marie Lu has written other books, but this is her adult debut. And it's perfect for fans of V.E. Schwab, which I am a fan of V.E. Schwab. You will see her works later in this list. Red City is a dark and deadly contemporary fantasy of magic and warfare, star-crossed ambition, and the pursuit of perfection at any cost, set in a glittering Los Angeles. I've since heard a lot of really good things about this book, and I'm excited to get this one read. The Night and the Moth, which is book 1 in the Stonewater Kingdom. This is a gothic, mist-cloaked tale of a young prophetess forced on an impossible quest with the one knight whose future is beyond her sight. So I haven't read anything by Rachel Gillig yet. One Dark Window is definitely on my list. It's one that I want to use for my R Fantasy bingo before April. I did have one of my friends that read this and absolutely ranted and raved about it and keeps bugging me to read it. So I'm going to make sure I read this one in 2026. So these are my 6 one-book experiments, the try it before you buy the rest. My next book category are 5 series that I'm already committed to that have new releases coming out in 2026. So I don't obviously have any of the new books here, but I have the books in the series that I own that I'm making my way through. The Dungeon Crawler Carl series. This is the first one, just called Dungeon Crawler Carl. I am currently on book 5. I have 0 worries that I will not want to continue. Book 8 has been announced. It's called A Parade of Horribles, and it's supposed to come out May of 2026. I am currently getting ready to read book 5, and I'm just loving these. I really enjoyed The Gate of the Feral Gods. It really started to add some things to reinvigorate the series. This is about Carl, who was out at night trying to rescue his girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut. When he was outside, everything in the world collapsed, and anyone that was in something collapsible died. And those that remained were invited to join the dungeon, which ended up being essentially like a game show or a video game-like series. Each book is watching Carl and Princess Donut as they make their way through the series of levels. I believe there's supposed to be 18 floors, but Matt Dinniman, the author, has said that there will probably only be 10 books. Luckily, I don't know how we would get through like 17 or 18 books, but they are great. So honestly, I'll be really sad when the series is done. And I do love that there were already like 7 books for me to get to as soon as I got into it. These are really easy to binge. So I'm really looking forward to book 8, A Parade of Horribles, coming out. My next series I'm going to continue. I don't actually have the book because I've been getting them from the library. The Murderbot series is a series of novellas by Martha Wells that both my mom and I have actually been making our way through. I thought the series was done, so I was pleased to find out that book 8 of the series is going to come out in May of 2026. Book 8 is called Platform Decay. The Murderbot series is about a rogue sec unit or security unit robot that is sent with people who are exploring and trying to colonize new worlds. He has been disconnected from his program, and instead of actually wanting to murder people like his name says, he really just wants to watch TV and ends up helping people more than he wants to. So throughout the series, we're watching him gain some humanity, learn about his place, learn about the relationship between robots, AI, and humans, and just really kind of figure out what it means to be human and if that's what he wants to do. This is a series I definitely plan to continue because they're quick, they're easy to get through, and they're pretty fun to read. A new series that I started this year is the Shadow of the Leviathan series, or I like to call it an Anna and Din mystery. Book 3 is already coming out next year, A Trade of Blood, and it comes out June of 2026. That's my birthday month, so I'll be treating myself to that one. The people of the world use biological enhancements, usually plant enhancements. They also create much of their world with biological material. It's considered biopunk, but they have to use these enhancements to try to protect themselves from these leviathans that try to attack them all the time. However, the book is not really about how they save themselves from the leviathans. Instead, it's like a Watson-Sherlock type of mystery where Anna and Din are 2 enhanced individuals that are presented with what seem like unsolvable murder mysteries, and they have to use their enhancements, use their skills to solve the murders, usually while other perilous things are about to happen. So this is by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've enjoyed his writing. The third one in this, A Trade of Blood, comes out June of next year, so I'll be continuing that series. And finally, oh my gosh, the next, and I'm assuming last book in the Alex Stern series, finally has a release date or a release month. It's called Deadbeat, and it's supposed to come out September of 2026. This series follows Alex Stern as she helps to navigate the weird and magical things that happen on Yale University's campus. Her and her mentor are essentially the people that keep all of the other schools, or you might call them like sororities and fraternities, in check when they try to use and abuse their magical powers. However, in book 1, you find find out early on that her mentor has been captured and she is trying to navigate this on her own, and it kind of jumps back and forth in time. I might reread these again before Deadbeat comes out in September just to refresh my memory, because sometimes I read them so fast that I forgot what happened. Just recently I found out that V.E. Schwab is creating this as a trilogy. Victorious is book 3 in this series, and it's supposed to come out October of 2026. This book follows a bunch of EOs, or extraordinary individuals, that essentially have magical powers that they've gained after almost dying. Throughout the series, we're learning about all of these dynamics and relationships between these EOs that are trying to hide, but also can't always control their powers. Book 3 comes out October of 2026, so I'm really excited. Each book doesn't feel like a cliffhanger at the end. That's kind of why I didn't know it was going to be a trilogy, but I'm excited to see how everything ends with our characters. These are the 5 series where I'm ready for the new book to come out, so they've been pre-ordered in my heart. So after all that fantasy and adventure, I know I'm going to need a cozy break. So next up, I have my 4 low-stress comfort reads. On this list, we have A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana, an enchanting novel about a witch who has a second chance to get her magical powers and her life back on track. I read and loved The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I had to remember the whole big title. So when this became an aardvark pick, I knew I had to grab it. I definitely had to grab it because it has this beautiful ombre naked hardcover to it. And so I'm really excited to get back into, it's not really a series, I just know that it's going to have this cozy magical vibe. One of the pretty books I bought myself this year was Sorcery and Small Magics by Maiga Ducey. This is actually part of a trilogy, but I'm including it in my cozy comfort picks because the next book in the series is not even announced yet, and I'm pretty sure from what I've heard, this doesn't have a cliffhanger ending. It's just not everything is nice and wrapped up. Desperate to undo the curse behind them and to each other, an impulsive sorcerer and his curmudgeonly rival venture deep into a magical forest in search of a counterspell, only to discover that the magic might not be the only thing pulling them together. This is a cozy romance, but also with enough plot, I think, that's going to drag me in. Sometimes things are too cozy for me. I want to make sure that I read this soon so that when the next one's ready, when it's announced, when it's going to come out, I want to see if I want to finish this series. The next book in my 4 cozy, low-stress books I want to read actually isn't out yet. It will be out soon. Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter. So this comes out in February of 2026, and it's by Heather Fawcett. A woman who runs a cat rescue in the 1920s in Montreal turns to a grouchy but charming wizard to help save the shelter in this heartwarming, cozy fantasy. Heather Fawcett is the author that wrote the Emily Wilde trilogy, which I loved and adored. Again, cozy, but still with some plot. So I know I'm going to enjoy this Mystical Cat Shelter as well. And the last book on the list probably wouldn't meet the criteria for cozy, but there's a reason it's on this list. Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames was recently brought to my attention from Broken Binding. It's not what I would call cozy, but it definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. A retired group of legendary mercenaries get the band back together for one last impossible mission in this award-winning debut epic fantasy. It is an adventure, it is a fantasy, but it plays a lot on the band humor. There's a lot of references to rock bands and rock and roll music in general, and from what I've heard, this does not take itself seriously. It's not cozy, but it's why I'm putting it in the low-stress, humorous, whimsical category. These 4 are my fantasies that know how to have fun. Okay, so now that we took a break, we gotta get gothic and gritty again. We're gonna ruin the vibe. Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a chilling historical horror novel tracing the life of a vampire who haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Reservation looking for justice. Interview with an indigenous vampire is one of the things that I read about it. This is gonna be my first Stephen Graham Jones, which I know some people have said to not start with this one, but I know going into it that it's going to be a little bit slower. It's going to have a different writing style because Stephen Graham Jones is an Indigenous person and he writes with that Indigenous feel. I believe it's also a little epistolary where you're reading some diaries or journal entries or something like that. So I know what I'm getting into, and I'm really excited to read this in January, February when it's snowing outside, because I've heard that's like the perfect vibe for this. I think if I know what I'm going into, then I'm going to really enjoy it, and then we'll probably pick up some other Stephen Graham Jones in the future if this is kind of what I'm looking for. Slewfoot by Brahm. Brahm is an illustrator, and this book does include numerous illustrations that he does himself, which is what really intrigued me. This is set in colonial New England. It's a tale of magic and mystery, of triumph and terror. Connecticut, 1666. An ancient spirit awakens in a dark wood. The wild folk call him father, slayer, protector, but the colonialists call him Slewfoot, demon, devil. To Abatha, the main character, a recently widowed outcast, alone and vulnerable in her pious village, he's the only one she can turn to for help. All right, and this one kind of out of left field. The Library at Hellebore by Cassandra Kaw. The Hellebore Technical Institute for the Gifted is the premier academy for the dangerous, the antichrists, and Ragnaroks, the world eaters, and apocalypse makers. Hellebore promises redemption, acceptance, and a normal life after graduation. That's what Alessa Lee is told when she's kidnapped and forced to enroll. I really enjoyed Naomi Novik's Golden Enclave series, which again, I know this is darker than that, but I really do love a magical school story. I love a dark academia. I know this is a dark and horror version of that. It's not very long. I figure what the heck, I can give this a try. So I have my 3 gothic, gritty, horror adjacent books. These next 2 books on my 2026 TBR center around LGBTQ main characters. They are by no means the only books on this list that have LGBTQ characters. All of Us Murderers by KJ Charles. I love this cover. The lush gothic drama of Crimson Peak meets the murderous intrigue of Knives Out, with an LGBTQIA+ love story to die for. Who will survive the Lackaday house? This is a locked room mystery. I just fell in love with the cover. It so much reminds me of like the Hardy Boys or the old Nancy Drew books, which I loved reading Nancy Drew books when I was a kid. So I picked this up from the Aardvark box and I'm really excited to get to it. And then this is another Aardvark pick that I just couldn't say no to. I kept going back and forth between filling the box with it or not. Local Heavens by K.M. Fajardo. I believe I'm saying that right. A corporate hacker, an elusive billionaire, a society trying to survive the American nightmare. So this is a gay science fiction retelling of The Great Gatsby. I read The Great Gatsby in high school and was very intrigued by it. I would not say it was my favorite book, but it was one of those books that I appreciated reading in an analytical way in school. I definitely got way more out of it. So it's always a story that's at the back of my mind. So I'm really excited to see this gay science fiction retelling of it and kind of having flashbacks to those high school years of reading The Great Gatsby. So these 2 are my queer stories, no asterisks. And finally, the one book on my list that's here to educate me. So I have this as an ebook, so I'll just put a picture of the cover here. Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. Tuberculosis has been entwined with humanity for a millennia. Once romanticized as a malady of poets, today tuberculosis is seen as the disease of poverty that walks the trails of injustice and inequity that we blazed for it. I was an infectious disease researcher. When I became a science teacher, I used to use tuberculosis as an example in numerous classes. It's an example of evolution because it is one of the bacterial infections that has evolved to the point where we are getting to the point where we cannot cure it with antibiotics, and it is a global issue. We see it in the United States. I am really excited to read this book, and I'm fascinated by science nonfiction, science-related nonfiction. This is a topic right up my alley. I keep hearing about it. It was a Goodreads Choice winner, and I'm excited to get to it on my Kindle. So I have my 7 standalones, my 6 one-book experiments, my 5 series releases, 4 low-stress comfort reads, 3 gothic gritty horror adjacent, 2 LGBTQIA+ stories, and 1 nonfiction. If you're doing the math, it's 28 books, not 26. But I figure each year I can keep doing this countdown style TBR for myself. So my mom and I filmed this winter TBR game earlier. She picked all these presents, she picked all these books, we made up some rules, we were really committed, and we realized the entire video had no audio. So instead of pretending that it didn't happen and trying to redo it again, I thought I would incorporate it at the end of this video, and hopefully it's just as adorable this way as it would have been the other way, although I'm sure it's not. Here's the whole game as it happened. I'm gonna add a little bit of context. My mom's shaking up the list, and now she's explaining the rules. She's explaining that the tags on the gifts match the tag in the box. And so I start asking questions about swapping, and she hadn't thought about that. So we're kind of making up the rules as we go. But the idea is each tag has a book written on it, and whatever you match with, that's the book you get. We decide that you can swap twice, so it's kind of like a white elephant style. Alright, so here I go. I make my first pick. Looking for the gift that matches, and I got the little bucket. I don't want Mom to cheat, so she picks when I hold it, and she gets, it's a little stocking, a tiny stocking, good for gift cards. Here's pick number 2 for me, and I get a pot holder. Who doesn't need a festive holiday pot holder? This time my mom gets the other stocking, tiny stocking. Third round, I get the other bucket, so we are doubling up on gifts, which is probably not what she intended. Alright, her third gift pick. Oh, she tried to cheat and take 2 tags. This time she gets some fun, festive glasses. Round 4. I got another pot holder, so I have 2 buckets and 2 pot holders. And she gets the other glasses, so she has 2 glasses and 2 stockings. Finally, I get something different. I get the big candy cane. And she gets the jingle bell as her 5th gift. So the last 2 on the table are for swapping, potential swapping. So now we're going to reveal the books. My first book that I get is Pride and Prejudice, which my grandma will be very excited about. I'm keeping it because I've wanted to read that, and I own it. The first one she gets is Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. And I think she decides to keep it. My next book that I picked was I Am Malala. My mom's second book pick was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. So far we haven't swapped anything. My third book pick was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And I want to hide it because she wants it and I want it too. Her third one is Jane Eyre. But I think she's thinking about swapping it with me. Oh, she does. She takes I Am Malala and gives me Jane Eyre, which I'm okay with. Alright, so my fourth one is A Singular Woman, which is a book written by Obama's mother, which I didn't even know existed. My mom's fourth book pick is Ruby Fruit Jungle, which is one that she had heard of, but I had never heard of. Alright, on to my fifth book, Outrageous Acts of Rebellion. And then my mom's final pick is My Antonia. So now we're thinking about swapping the big one. So I really wanted a jingle bell and I didn't really want a singular woman. So I took a big jingle bell, and as a replacement I got Heartland, a memoir by Sarah Smarsh. It's a memoir about being broke in the richest country on earth, which sounds intriguing. And then my mom kind of cheated and knew what the last book was, and so she wanted it. So she grabbed the Peppermint Stick, which had Kindred by Octavia E. Butler on it, and then she decides to put back Ruby Fruit Jungle. For our winter TBR, so January, February, March, my mom has Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, I Am Malala by Malala, My Antonia by Willa Cather, and Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. My final picks were Outrageous Acts and Everyday Rebellions by Gloria Steinem, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and Heartland, a memoir of working hard and being broke in the richest country on earth by Sarah Smarch. So that's it. That's my 2026 TBR countdown. If you've read any of these, or if you're interested in reading any of these, I would love to hear in the comments which ones you are interested in reading. And if you want to make sure you catch some more of our end of year content, our best of and worst of videos, hopefully with audio, then make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy reading.